So with Ninja Gaiden 4 coming out this fall, I thought that this would be the perfect time for me to get into the Ninja Gaiden series. So I bought the Ninja Gaiden collection and Ninja Gaiden 2 Black, and as of right now, I've just completed the first one. So in this video, I'm going to share my thoughts on the game, a review, some may call it. Wait, when did this game come out? A 21-year late review, so let's just get into it. So I'll just start off with the least important part of this game, the story, because I'm not gonna lie, there is not much to say. The Hayabusa village gets destroyed by this dude called Doku, who steals a very important sword and we gotta get it back. That's really about it. Ryu is a badass protagonist, he was really fun to both watching cutscenes and especially play as. And then there's also this woman, Rachel, whose sister turned into a fiend, which is basically a demon. And it's all neat. The cutscenes themselves ended up being quite funny and goofy at points, which was to be expected. This game is pretty old. But who cares about the story? Let's cut the BS and get to the actual good stuff, the gameplay. So Ninja Gaiden is a series that is known for being absolutely brutal. So I should just let you know, I played this on normal. I got my ass handed to me. A lot. Genuinely cannot even imagine what playing this on Master Ninja is like. There were certain points where I just chose to quit out of the game and leave it till the next day. Like the people who actually properly learned this game, props to you. But yeah, it was brutal. But okay, you play as Ryu Hayabusa for most of the game, obviously, but his kit is decked out. There's so many weapons you can find either lying around the place and stuff, and I am certain I haven't found them all. All of them have sick unique moves and get even better when you upgrade them. Like at the beginning of the game, I was annoyed that I wasn't able to do air attacks with my sword. Oh, what's that? Go to this old guy and buy an upgrade? Jackpot! Baby, air combos unlocked. I even spent a good bit of time outside of combat just going through the move lists of each weapon I unlocked to see what I'm able to do with them. Now I'm not gonna lie, for the majority of the game I did stick with the dragon sword because that's the weapon I was most comfortable with and was definitely the one I was best with. I did use the dual swords quite a bit and then nunchucks and flail in some specific encounters where there was a crap load of enemies floating around. But most of the time I did stick with the dragon sword. There was a couple that I couldn't get into using a lot, like the double harrow because of how slow it was, or the lunar staff, which I didn't really like either. But most of the weapons I did really enjoy using. And of course I cannot talk about Ryu's moveset without mentioning the Izuna drop. This is actually the most fun move in the game. It's always so sick to pull off, and also one of my main reasons why I use the dragon sword so much. Then there's Ryu's Ninpo, which I mostly switch between two. The one that has fireballs floating around you, and the one where you go in the air and blast lightning. It was really good for iframes. It saved me a lot during fights. Now I never managed to buy all the upgrades for Ryu, so there's probably a bunch of cool stuff that I missed. A lot of essence I earned went towards healing items because I'm bad at the game. So yeah, parrying in this game felt weird at first. At the beginning I could not parry for the life of me. I only really got the timing during a Rachel level, more on that in a bit. But when I got the timing I could pull it off quite consistently. Kinda. But learning the mechanics in this game is hella fun. I picked up quite quickly that shurikens cancel out animations, so that became really helpful for me. And then Ryu also has a bunch of range attacks. He has a bow which has a load of different arrows he can use, which are fun to blast around, although I will say the aiming mode is absolute dog water. It is so janky. I know it's an old game, but Jesus Christ. There's also smoke bombs. I used them once, but I did keep the shurikens equipped a lot due to the quick damage and cancelling iframes. But yeah, Ryu is hella fun. I had a great time. Now this game also has a second playable character, Rachel, and yeah, she's alright. Alright, back to Ryu Hayabusa, baby. Yeah, come on, mess him up. Boom, Izuna drop. Yeah! Okay, but for real though, she has one weapon and one weapon only. It gets the job done and it is satisfying to use. But Ryu is just much better to play. But hey, she does have a really cool camera pan every time you kill someone. Now speaking of killing dudes, let's talk enemy design. For the most part, I really enjoyed learning how to fight against the enemies. For example, I was absolutely god-awful against the black spider dudes at first. They would destroy me constantly. But I ended up learning how to parry their attacks and learned their patterns, and it was hella satisfying to be able to defeat them semi-consistently. I learned quickly, and totally not from a Reddit post I looked up after dying too much, that this game isn't about being hella aggressive and going in for insane combos all the time. You gotta wait till it's your turn, counter the enemy's attacks, and then go in. Obviously you also have your cannon fodder enemies like the small fiend guys or the soldiers, which you stop fighting like halfway through the game. But even with the soldier dudes at the beginning, they kept on killing me. Some of them had guns, explosive shields. Oh my god, those shield guys got so annoying sometimes. But eventually I learned how to take them out. You also fight bats quite often. And like, they die in one hit. So like, they're literally there to heal you. I ain't complaining about that, they were really satisfying to slash. There was also a lot of big boys, like these dragon dudes. Those are pretty hard, I won't lie. And I just wanna say, whoever thought that adding these fish into this game was a good idea deserves a spot in hell. Those guys made me wanna blow my brains out. Hell, same goes for the guys in the motorbikes and horses too, I hated them. Thank God I learned how to fight them because Jesus Christ. But overall, I really enjoyed fighting most of the enemies. A bunch I did downright hate though. Next up, I want to talk about the boss fights. And I don't know if this is a hot take or not, or if it's because I'm bad at the game or something. But in my opinion, the boss fights range from an absolute dumpster fire to really good. For instance, here are some of the fights I did like. This Beowulf looking guy, Doku, this dragon, whatever this guy is, Murai. Those were all really good. And here are some I didn't like. These stupid worms, I cannot tell you how much I hate them. I spent so much time fighting them. The camera angle was so annoying every time you had to fight them. You had to do it like 3 times. This guy who's been playing too much Devil May Cry 2. These DMC2 tanks and choppers. And guess what? You can't even melee them. You have to use ranged weapons. I am fully convinced that the devs looked at DMC2 and thought, yes! Let's do this, but make it good. And then they forgot about the whole making it good part. But other than that, most of the other boss fights, I did really enjoy. But dear God, these fights were brutal. They had me raging. When I was finally able to take out normal enemies somewhat consistently, I'd hit a boss fight. And oh my god, I get stuck on some of them for like 3 hours. Sometimes I just chose to stop playing and leave it till the next day. I'm not saying that is a bad thing, by the way, even though I did get pissed off a lot. Whether it's because I didn't like the boss, was stuck on it for ages, or the last checkpoint I hit before the boss fight was absolutely god-awful, more on that in a bit. I did really enjoy the majority of the boss fights, even if they did have me feeling like... You fucking... But then when I did beat them, I felt like... I'm stronger, I'm smarter, I'm better, I am better! But as angry as I was getting, the learning process of these fights was super fun. Like once again, this Beowulf guy... Okay, what is his name? Ah yes. My first few attempts against this fight were god-awful. I kept dying insanely fast, didn't get much damage in, but then I learned how to fight him better, know how to avoid his running attacks, lasers, stomps. Instead of going ham on him, I chose to jump dash his attacks until he got stunned. Then when he got stunned, I got a load of damage in, and eventually I managed to beat him. But a lot of the bosses, if I were to redo them now, I'd probably not fare that well in them still. The final fight wrecked me, for example. I developed a decent strat, but if I was to do it again now, it would still probably take me a good few attempts to beat him again. There were also dudes that acted like mini-bosses, like these tentacle things, which were fun to be fair, and pretty easy to kill. Overall, a lot of the bosses were really fun. A bunch were god-awful. Most of them made me violently abuse my controller. Okay, next up I want to talk about the level design, but before that I want to quickly talk about the checkpoints, because this is an old game, so there wasn't really an autosave. Instead, there were save points where you had to manually save the game, which is fine, and most of the checkpoints were placed pretty well. But goodness gracious, some of them made me actually lose faith in humanity. And this might just be a skill issue, and let's face it, it probably is. But take the last mission in the game. You have to do a parkour section, right? And the only checkpoint in the level is right before it. And right after the parkour section, you have to do the final boss fight. You see where I'm going with this? If I mess up the boss, and I messed it up a lot, I have to do the parkour section again, which was really annoying. Because I really enjoyed learning the boss, but doing that parkour section every time I died, yeah. And there's a few checkpoints that are like that, but the majority of them are good. Now, the level design itself is really good. I loved going through most of the missions in this game. You go through a load of different environments, which are all really cool. The Hayabusa village, the city, an airship, the sewers, a military base, a volcano, an ice cave, all kinds of good stuff. Throughout the whole game, there was only one chapter I downright hated, that being Mission 13. And that's because it's an underwater level. and I hate underwater levels in video games. But other than that one level, I enjoyed the other ones, and the puzzles were really fun to do too. For example, there's a mission where you have to release a bunch of water from like 2 rooms to activate the waterfalls to open a door, and you're running around the sewers to find the items, and that was actually really fun to do, even if I had to fight them in between. But there was a level where you had to practically do a boss rush because you have to fight like 5 boss fights, and for the first 3 you don't have a checkpoint, which I thought was gonna annoy me, but I actually had a blast doing them. The other 2 were even better. And I just had a lot of fun exploring the different places, looking around for chests and weapons and stuff. There were also these rooms, which whenever I entered them, they just had infinitely spawning enemies, and the first time I encountered one of those was on the airship. I thought I was going the correct way, so I spent like an hour attempting to kill every enemy in the room, even though it was literally impossible. So I don't know what those were about. There's also a bunch of platforming sections in this game, and the platforming in this game is just about as good as in Devil May Cry. So take that however you will. The wall jumping and wall running stuff was really sick though. Sometimes trying to wall run got a little janky, but most of the time it worked. And I also just want to say that even though I know I was playing the remastered version of the game, it still looked really good, so that's nice. But overall, Ninja Gaiden is an incredible game for the most part. The gameplay is insanely fun, especially playing as Ryu. Rachel is not as good, but she's still okay. The story is, who cares, we're here for the combat. The enemy types were all mostly really good, except a few. The boss fights again ranged from truly horrendous to really good. And the level design is mostly great. And of course this game was brutal with its difficulty. But yeah, I love this game and I suggest you play it too if you haven't already. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, of course leave a like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Adios.